So we are here today to kick off this conversation around the big announcement that San Francisco State University has actually been working towards their investment policy statement, and they've made a commitment to racial equity and climate justice. And I sort of did my homework, and I did not see that an institution had simultaneously tackled both. And so my name is Angela Outlaw Matheny. I am with Crucial Partners, and I lead our diversity, equity, inclusion efforts at Crucial Partners. I was hired 6 years ago to build what we think is a robust pipeline of diverse asset managers to include women and people of color. We manage about $34 billion on behalf of all nonprofit organizations, so we're not in the public pension plan space and don't plan to be. Someone keeps trying to convince me otherwise, but we are experts in the endowment and foundation space. We've been around since 1980. Some of you may remember us as Colonial Consulting. Well, I'm one that raised my hand to say that name does not work or align with the work that we are doing, that I'm doing, particularly why I was hired. And so fast forward, we are Crucial Partners, and we are a crew, and I like to say that we're in the boat voluntarily now, rowing in the same direction. So we've sort of rebranded before George Floyd, and I'm happy about the growth of the firm and where we're headed today. Also today, I co-lead our investment team with our CIO, Mike Miller. So we're here today to, I have a bunch of questions, but I want to jump off. I want to kick things off with Netta, because Netta has really been a huge voice at the university, the San Francisco State University. And Netta, you remind me of myself because I love to drive change. I'm enthusiastic, and usually people don't like to embrace change, but I do because it's inevitable. And so with your background, before you came on board at the university, you were doing some significant work. And I saw your commencement speech to the class of 2017, and I was just so thrilled about the message you had there. I want to talk about some of the challenges maybe that you had at the university as you approached this work. And I want to sort of frame this around what I care so deeply about, economic mobility, and a part of the dream that Dr. King didn't see. So Mahalia Jackson, if you don't know, she was in the background saying, "Tell him about the dream, Martin, tell him about the dream." And I feel that that was your voice maybe at the university. You probably had a strategic plan, so I don't want to debate that. But what was the journey like? You are where you are today, but let's talk about the journey and the challenges that you've had along the way.
All right, well, good to be here with all of you. I'm an activist at heart, and climate has been, it's the problem of problems, and it's been my focus for many years. I went to San Francisco State as a young Iranian international student, and racial equity and justice was always the North Star at that university, and that's what's kept me going back to it, and why I spend the time that I do on this university. Ultimately, it's our students, and they all remind me of me. So I, connect to our former Vice President of Advancement, Robert Nava, was on the IEN steering committee, and he connected me to IEN while I had just become a director on the board. And it was just like being home. The conversations that were happening at IEN gatherings were exactly at the epicenter of what really interested me. And each panel, not unlike this room, the roundtable conversations, the learning from the peers, the topics that would come up, it would just ignite these ideas that I could take back to the university and sort of mobilize a whole group and go on this almost like campaign trail to get people behind it, not because they weren't sold on the idea, but just to bring like-minded people together. And then Jeff got there and he joined IAN, and then I was the chair of the investment committee for some time. We were working with our OCIO, Cambridge associate, and that team changed and there was this whole turnover. But eventually all the stars got aligned and we were able to establish the Student Sustainable Investment Fund for the university, which was an idea that came out of the Silk Network from IEN. And then I always joke about how each time we have a goal and it feels like we're there. Okay, we caught the wave, and then there's a push for the next. It just keeps evolving. This target keeps moving, and we're moving with it and growing with it. So I'm getting off topic, I feel like. But anyway, back to your question.
Let's talk a little bit about how you came to making the decision to commit to racial equity and climate justice.
Okay.
What was it like being around the table with the students, with the faculty? And you mentioned that two of the co-authors, who's actually a FinTech professor and a professor of public policy, the diversity of thought around this table is just amazing.
Yeah, so, so in terms of the components of this puzzle, years ago, I don't know how long ago, a bunch of donors decided, I was one of them, we would give money to the university only to a fund that would be 100% divested from fossil fuel. So that's how the Green Fund was born. So it kind of stayed a stepchild for quite a few years. And then we merged it, there was a subcommittee that used to report to the investment committee. And anyway, fast forward, the racial equity piece really for San Francisco State is at the heart of our DNA. It's just a given. So the climate piece kind of came afterwards, but Sheldon Jen, who's our current investment committee chair, who's a public policy professor at San Francisco State, he sort of took the charge with this new IPS, and he invited Todd Feldman, who's an associate professor, FinTech, who runs our student investment fund with the students. But anyway, they cultivated a group of stakeholders, like who's going to sit at the table. And we definitely wanted the students there, and many of the faculty and staff and Jeff and our former board chair and I and a few others, and we just got all these different voices to contribute to this IPS, which I don't want to hog the mic.
Okay, we're going to move on to Jeff now. Thank you so much, Nana.
Thank you.
So Jeff, you kind of bring home the bacon, and if you notice, we skipped the bios because we only have 25 minutes. But Jeff, you bring home the bacon. You talk to many of the donors, constituents, stakeholders. Let's talk about how your incredible role to advance, to propel the organization within the 2 years' time that you've been there. What sort of strides have you made? And then we're going to bring Mike into the conversation to see how he built or is continuously working on building this incredible portfolio.
Sure, thank you, Angela. So I will offer that I agree with everything that Netta has characterized in that a deep sense of racial justice and social justice is part and parcel of the institutional identity of San Francisco State, as is a profound commitment to fighting climate change. And at the same time, I think what Netta and our immediate previous board chair, Kimberly Brandon, and the other folks that Netta mentioned pushed us to do was to actually reflect that DNA in how we leverage the capital in our endowment. If we are in fact the mission-driven institution that we purport to be, and I believe we are, we need to go beyond leveraging the capital in our endowment from an agnostic perspective to just grow it as quickly as possible, but to couple that with those core institutional values. So revising and approving this investment policy statement that integrates core DEI commitments of measuring and making progress on the percentages of our assets under management by BIPOC and women-led and owned firms, as well as clear commitments around full fossil fuel investment and a net zero commitment. That's a way of living our values and moving our values forward. And in my additional role as Vice President for Advancement, to bring home as much bacon as possible and grow that endowment, we're able to say to our current and prospective donors, your capital, when you make a gift to our endowment, is not only supporting the particular program or scholarship that you care about, it's also affecting change in the world and in the marketplace that are presumably aligned with the values that you hold because you're supporting San Francisco State in the first place.
You can have your values and to align your values with that of your institution, but then there's this thing called Prop 209, right, that started with the universities, but it's trickled over into the larger asset management business, and that's where we see all of the historical challenges and barriers today. Talk about how you talk with maybe your legal counsel and also the board as you worked around Prop 209.
So we, Prop 209, for those who aren't familiar with, was a ballot proposition passed quite a while ago in California, prohibiting differential treatment in higher education settings on the basis of gender, race, ethnicity, what have you. It was primarily around fighting affirmative action in admissions, an egregious and horrible step backward in my personal and professional opinion. Because the San Francisco State University Foundation exists solely to support San Francisco State, a public higher ed institution in California, we're beholden to Prop 209 in the same way that the university itself would be. We had to work really closely with our foundation legal counsel to characterize our goals, the definitions we would use to measure progress on our DEI objectives, and place a strong emphasis on sourcing those investment opportunities such that it would be implicit and explicitly clear that every investment we make with our wonderful partners, Cambridge Associates, are absolutely honoring our core fiduciary responsibilities, even as we also advance those institutional values.
So I love that you love your consultant, and he's actually our competitor, although we're nowhere near as big as Cambridge. But don't you all agree that there's so much work to do in this industry that we need an ecosystem, and we should be aligned if we are all working towards what I wake up every day and I'm excited about, working towards the mission, and I'm one of those who are excited about driving change. So Mike, Netta talked about a lot of advisors or just naysayers that express this idea, oh, we can't do what, work towards your goals. We can't build the portfolio that the endowment cares so dearly about and, want to align with their mission and values. But before you became their consultant, you actually started thinking about this, started thinking about how you would build that portfolio. Share some of those insights with us that brought you where you are today and working with the university.
Yeah. So, I actually had an event at San Francisco State before I was a consultant, and I was on a panel then. It's great work. I can't believe how much we've grown and everything's going well. But at that time, I was on a panel to talk about implementation, and fossil fuel investment was really the focus there. And I'd heard so much about San Francisco State, but that moment actually made me sit down and say, okay, today, take a blank sheet of paper, assume an endowment, can I build a multi-asset class, multi-manager, active management portfolio that's fossil fuel free? And I had to sit down and do that because of an IEN event. And I looked at it, I was like, this is a portfolio that I can get behind. I can credibly say, without a doubt, I would stand behind it and invest. And I heard all the things at San Francisco State, so I kind of hovered in the background. I really wanted to work with this institution and really bring this to fruition. But I think the industry has changed. I think if you're getting the no answer from an advisor, man, that's the old economy stuff that we just heard about from President Johnson. You should find another advisor, or you should push your advisor, because I think that that's unacceptable at this stage in building portfolios and from an investment advisor. So I think that things have changed, and I think you'll get a positive response for the most part. Not just working with Crucial at Cambridge, I think more broadly.
Absolutely, I would definitely agree with that, and I'm going to interpret what he just said. He said that you should fire your advisor, but try to work with them and educate them first, right? But us LPs and allocators, we are such great influencers, right? That it should be incumbent upon you as an advisor to listen to all stakeholders, to listen to the client that hired you, to exercise your fiduciary duty and looking at every single opportunity that includes ethnicity, different asset classes, different ideas. At Crucial, we're open to many ideas, and managers in the room, you often say, "What's your process like?" And what are you looking for? Tell us what's out there. Sometimes you're educating us. You have no idea how much you educate analysts. Yeah, we are all subject matter experts, and a lot of us are generalists, but you bring the opportunity to us and let us worry about where it fits. So I'm sure you would agree with that, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the opportunity set has changed now. So what do we do at Cambridge? We come at these topics of climate and DEI and the intersectionality as really risk-reducing opportunities, return-seeking opportunities. These are alpha generatives. So I love that the conversation with San Francisco State has never had an inkling of this idea that Georgia said we may have moved past in this room, which is some idea of sacrificing returns. And it's truly embraced kind of the idea of this is a way to drive incremental return.
I'm glad you talked about sacrificing returns, because we shun away from that idea, right, Jeff? You talked about that, and that's something that you wanted to make clear to the board, I'm sure, and your advisor already understood that. Mike, I'm going to stay with you for 1 second, because with energy prices skyrocketing and stocks have rebounded, it's putting a bit of pressure on the people, right, that say it's important to them. So actually, either one of you can answer this. Let's talk about some of the pushback, because we saw what's happening, not to be political, but sometimes we have to go there, in Florida and in Texas. And so for the naysayers who are so worried about, energy, stocks and still investing in those sorts of things, what is your reaction? And how maybe have you educated your institution?
So I'm a humanities person by background. I'll offer the humanities component of that answer, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mike for the finance component. We are long on the new economy. We are long on a just and restorative and minimally extractive economy. Partly, again, because those are our core institutional values, but also because, as you hear from the folks who are really expert in this, that's where the upside is on the long term. And I will say that even as we see where our portfolio is now relative to where it was 6 months ago, and it's a little bit, we trend along with the markets, we're where we want to be in terms of how our investments reflect our core values.
Okay, thank you. Mike, you want to jump in?
The question is basically energy stocks, and a lot of these portfolios that are ESG-centric have invested or tilted away from these things. What we've tried to educate some clients is that there might be short-term tracking error relative to some broad-based benchmark, but over full market cycles over the long term, we don't think that these portfolios will inherently have have some degradation of value. In fact, we think, given the way we structure portfolios, that, again, it's an opportunity for outperformance. So yes, without a doubt, there will be certain market environments, and I think we've lived through one recently, where energy stocks have done incredibly well, and not having that will provide tracking error, which happens to be negative, but just like prior to this recent period, the tracking error here was positive for not having exposure to these things. So we think it's largely a short-term headache. And what we try to do is take a step back and say, why do you have energy stocks in the portfolio at all? Well, it's because you want some diversification, but you probably want protection against inflationary environments. And there's other ways to get protection against inflationary environments than just having traditional energy stocks in the portfolio. So I think that there's kind of some of this dogma that when you take a step back, you can probably figure out another solution that is still aligned with where you want to go.
Thank you, Mike. Ned, I'm going to let you have the last word as we wrap up here and have about a minute left. I just want to give you my reaction to the IPS because I'm very sensitive to the word minority. I think we should retire that word and that assignment to people of color, particularly. And I'm so proud to see that it is not in your IPS. Whose idea was that? Was that Mike's and Wendy's help at Cambridge? Was it your voice at the institution? What's your reaction to the word minority?
I don't take any credit for that. Really, I keep going back to Sheldon, Jen, and Todd Feldman as the co-authors. They basically took the IPS, tore it apart, put it in the trash, started from absolute scratch. What are our values? What do we believe in? What's the world we want to leave for our students? What do our students want to see in their future? They started from that, and that's a just and equitable world where there is opportunity for all and representation, and that's for everyone, right? But I don't take any credit for that. But in terms of the endowment, I just wanted to say, you know, our responsibility is long-term. This is in perpetuity. We don't time the markets. So these short-term headaches, that's all they are. And we just envision a beautiful, clean, and equitable future for our students. So we want to invest into that.
Thank you, Netta, Jeff, and Mike for all of your insights. I just want all of you to know that there was a huge conference that happened in Atlanta last week where a lot of LPs and allocators led by Sam Austin and NAPC, we're all coming together as a collective to solve this issue about diversity and asset management, and we promise to work together to build the pipeline of the future talent that we know can help us all with respect to what we care about so much in America, but also in our institutions. Thank you for having us. Enjoy the rest of the conference.